Welcome, weary traveler. You've left behind the noise of the world and stepped into a realm untouched by time. Here, candlelight dances upon ancient stone walls, and the air carries the soft hum of forgotten lullabies beyond these gates. The night is gentle, and every story is a silver thread, weaving warmth around your heart. So, rest your mind. Let each word be a quiet step into the halls of dreams, until sleep, tender and deep, finds you. You are safe here, and slowly, the world drifts away. Perfect, whispered softly beneath the hush of rain. Chapter 1. The first whisper of rain. The night had folded itself over the hills like a heavy velvet cloak. The air was still, save for the faintest hum of crickets that pulsed softly in the distance. Somewhere far beyond the village edge, the clouds had begun to gather, not in storm or anger, but in a kind of quiet longing, as though they wished to return something the earth had forgotten. I sat by the window, the candle beside me burning low, its flame a small trembling heart. The scent of melted wax mingled with the faint coolness that always comes before rain. My eyes followed the thin trail of smoke that drifted toward the rafters, curling, fading, vanishing like a sigh. It had been a long day of silence, the kind that stretches endlessly, where thoughts move slow and tender, touching old memories like fingertips brushing dust from a book left unopened too long. Outside, the sky deepened into ink blue shadow. I could feel the shift, the moment before the world exhales. Then, the first drop, a single note, soft as breath, against the wooden sill. Then another, and another dot. Soon the rhythm grew, gentle, patient, melodic, not hurried, not loud, but steady and sure. The rain had come. It began to sing against the roof, 1,000 tiny hands drumming in harmony. It wasn't the sound of sadness, nor of joy. It was the sound of remembering. I leaned closer to the open window, and the cool scent of damp earth reached me, rich and alive. It felt like a story, unfolding, slow, endless, full of secrets. Each drop was a word, each whisper a memory. And somewhere in that quiet music, I thought I heard my name. I closed my eyes. The candlelight flickered softly against my skin, and in its rhythm, I felt my heart beat slow. The world outside the window blurred, becoming less of a place and more of a feeling, soft, infinite, unbound. The rain was no longer falling outside. It was falling through me, through the quiet of my thoughts, through the tender, hollow spaces of my heart. The wind slipped in, cool and silver, stirring the loose pages of the journal on my desk. I watched as one page fluttered open, a blank one, waiting. I took it as an invitation. Perhaps the rain wished to tell me something tonight. I reached for my quill, though I wasn't sure what words I would write. My hand trembled slightly, not from cold, but from something gentler, like awe. Outside, the lanterns along the village road flickered through the mist, each one a tiny golden moon swimming in the rain. I thought of all the souls behind those lights, sleeping, dreaming, listening. The candle bent lower, its wax dripping down in slow, pale tears. And then, as I began to write, the whisper grew louder. It wasn't a voice I recognized, not entirely. It felt ancient, familiar, like a lullaby once sung in childhood, a song that had no beginning and no end. It spoke not in words, but in warmth. It told of gardens drenched in moonlight, of rivers that glowed beneath the stars, of hands reaching for each other across time. It told of love, not the kind that burns, but the kind that glows quietly, like embers that never fade. The sound of rain wrapped around me like a shawl. I could feel it weaving itself into my breath, my heartbeat, my dreams. I imagined the droplets as tiny worlds, each holding a reflection of something once loved, something once lost. They struck the ground and vanished, but their stories lingered in the air, shimmering, alive, somewhere between one breath and the next. I must have drifted. The candle went out, its last wisp of smoke curling upward like a ghost. The room fell into soft darkness, but the world outside glowed faintly, the rain turning silver under the watchful moon. My eyelids grew heavy. My body softened against the chair, sinking into its quiet cradle. Then came a whisper, close now, almost beside me. A woman's voice, soft as silken rainwater. "Do you remember," she said, "the night we first met the rain?" I didn't answer. I wasn't sure if she was real or part of the dream I was slipping into. Her words wrapped around me like warmth. I could almost see her, a figure standing beyond the window, hair damp with rain, eyes shining like starlight. She smiled faintly, the kind of smile that carries whole lifetimes within it. The rain deepened, growing rounder in sound, like heartbeats echoing through the clouds. The rhythm was hypnotic. My breath matched it, slow and even. I could feel the weight of sleep calling a tide, pulling me gently under. And as I drifted, the world began to change. The room softened into mist. The desk, the candle, the walls, they dissolved into light. I was still sitting, yet floating, the air around me shimmering like glass touched by breath. Outside the window, the rain had turned to silver ribbons, flowing upward instead of down. The sky unfolded like a curtain, revealing an endless field of stars. I was no longer awake, but I wasn't entirely asleep either. I was somewhere between. The voice returned, distant yet near come. It said, "The rain remembers everything." And I rose not with effort, but with ease. My body was weightless. My soul carried on the quiet rhythm of the rain. I stepped beyond the window and felt no cold, no fear, only stillness. The ground beneath me shimmered like moonlit glass, and every drop that touched me seemed to glow softly before melting into my skin. I walked, though I didn't know where. The world had become a dream of itself. Trees of silver leaves, streams whispering in languages I almost understood. The horizon pulsing faintly like the heart of the sky. Every sound was soft, every color muted, every breath a prayer. And through it all, the rain whispered stories of who we were, of what we loved, of the pieces of ourselves left behind in forgotten seasons. It whispered until my heart grew quiet, until the ache of time began to fade, until the only thing that remained was warmth. Somewhere far away, thunder murmured, not in warning, but in lullaby. A deep, slow hum that rocked the world to sleep. And so, with the rain still whispering its stories about us, I closed my eyes within the dream and listened. beautiful. Let us continue deeper into the dream, where rain turns to memory, and memory to light. Chapter 2, The Bridge of Mist. In memory, the dream did not end. It unfolded, like pages turning in a book written by rain. When I opened my eyes, the world was still whispering, the same rhythm, the same breath. Only now, the rain no longer fell from the heavens. It floated around me, suspended in the air like 1,000 tiny pearls, each trembling with light. Every droplet seemed to contain something, a flicker of faces, voices, laughter, tears, 1,000 small lives captured in water. I stood upon a path that shimmered faintly beneath my feet. It wasn't made of stone or earth, but of mist, soft and translucent, moving like breath in cold air. The path curved forward into the distance, vanishing into a veil of light where the rain grew thicker. The air was cool, fragrant with the scent of moss and faraway flowers that had never known sunlight. It was quiet here, but not empty. Every sound was gentle, the distant hum of water, the faint crackle of unseen stars, the echo of my own heartbeat, slow and deep like a drum beneath the surface of a lake. I took a step. The mist rippled beneath me, yet held firm. It felt like walking upon memory itself. As I moved forward, something changed in the air. A pulse, a shimmer, a sense of being watched, but not in fear. It was the kind of attention one feels when the forest listens. The rain around me began to hum, faintly at first, then clearer, like a melody formed from light. It called to me, and I followed. The path led upward, curving through clouds that glowed with faint luminescence. I could no longer tell where the earth ended or the sky began. The mist thickened into something tangible, soft as silk, cool against my skin. And then, through the veil, I saw it, a bridge, wide and arched, stretching across an invisible valley of silver clouds. Its rails were carved from old wood, worn smooth by time and touch, but the planks beneath glowed faintly, as though alive with the memory of every step ever taken across them. It wasn't just a bridge. It was a passage, a place between moments. As I approached, the rain stilled. The droplets hung motionless in the air, each one a suspended breath. The silence was perfect, deep and holy. I could feel my own heartbeat echo in the vastness, like the slow toll of a distant bell. Then, from the far side of the bridge, a figure appeared. She was cloaked in soft grey, her face hidden beneath a hood that shimmered faintly with dew. She did not move as I drew near, but I sensed her eyes calm, knowing, filled with something I could not yet name. When I stopped at the edge of the bridge, she raised her head, and the hood slipped back slightly. Her hair was the color of moonlight, her eyes silver pools, deep and endless, when she spoke. Her voice was not sound, but vibration, like a whisper carried through water. "You've heard the rain," she said softly. "Now you walk its memories." I nodded, though I did not understand. What is this place? My voice was gentle, barely above a breath. She smiled faintly, a smile that seemed older than the stars. This is where what was and what might be meet. Every drop of rain remembers a story. Every step you take upon this bridge will show you one of yours. Her words hung in the air like mist. My heart beat slower. The air around me shimmered. "I'm not sure I remember anything worth showing," I said quietly. "You will," she replied, her tone as soft as falling rain. "The rain remembers for you." And then she gestured for me to walk. I stepped onto the bridge immediately. The world around me rippled as though the mist itself exhaled. The air filled with light, and before me, the rain began to change shape. Droplets turned to images, faint at first, like reflections in shallow water. Then clearer, I saw myself a child running barefoot through summer grass, laughter spilling into the open air. My hands reached out toward the sky, catching rain in my palms. The scent of wet soil and jasmine surrounded me. I felt it, not as a memory, but as if it were happening now. The woman's voice drifted beside me. Every drop carries what we forget. Every storm, a chance to remember. I watched as the image dissolved, and another took its place. A candlelit room, familiar yet distant. A table with 2 cups of tea, steam rising slowly. A pair of hands reaching across, almost touching. The warmth, the stillness, the quiet ache of something unspoken. I felt tears rise, though I didn't know why. "Do not be sad," the voice murmured. "Even the rain must fall to be free." The images faded into mist once more. I continued to walk. The bridge seemed endless, stretching into dream after dream, some bright, some shadowed, but all threaded with the same sound, the soft rhythm of rain upon the soul at one point. The woman walked beside me, or perhaps she had always been there. "Do you see?" she whispered. "The rain does not weep. It remembers. It carries what we cannot hold, and returns it to us when we are ready." I looked at her, and what happens when I cross the bridge? Her eyes glimmered like water under moonlight. "You will find the story the rain has kept for you." For a long while, we walked in silence. The rain began to fall again, gentle, rhythmic. The mist parted slightly, revealing the far end of the bridge. There, beyond the last arc, was a forest, dark yet glowing softly, as though every leaf held a sleeping star. A silver river wound through it, its surface smooth as glass. The air pulsed with quiet life, the sound of flowing water, the hum of unseen creatures, the sigh of wind in branches. The woman stopped and placed her hand upon my shoulder. "Beyond this bridge," she said, "you will begin to hear what the rain remembers about you. Not the world, not the past, but you." Her touch was warm, impossibly warm. "And when you listen," she continued, "do not rush to understand. Let the rain speak in its own time. Its words are patient." I nodded, though my throat felt tight. "Will I see you again?" She smiled, the kind of smile that felt like sunrise after endless rain. "You already have." And then, before I could speak again, she turned, dissolving into mist, her form scattering into droplets that joined the rain. Only her whisper remained, echoing through the bridge. "Walk gently, dreamer. The rain remembers love." The mist parted completely now, revealing the path ahead. The bridge trembled softly beneath my feet. Not in fear, in farewell. I took one last breath of that silver air, feeling it fill me, cool and pure and pure. Then I stepped forward, into the forest where the rain whispered my name. Lovely. Now we drift deeper still into the forest where dreams sleep beneath silver leaves. Chapter 3. The Forest That Dreamed in Silver. The first thing I noticed as I crossed the threshold of the forest was the hush. not silence, but a living stillness, as if every tree, every blade of grass, every ripple of air had paused to breathe with me. The rain had softened into a mist, fine as silk, clinging to the edges of my sleeves and hair. It carried a faint scent, something ancient, like petrichor mingled with lavender and memory. The trees stood tall and patient. Their trunks were pale, their bark smooth and glimmering faintly under the faint glow that emanated from everywhere and nowhere at once. The leaves shimmered with droplets of silver rain, each holding a reflection of the sky, or perhaps of something far beyond it. I walked slowly, my steps barely a whisper against the soft, moss-covered earth. The air here felt different, denser somehow, not heavy, but full. It hummed gently, as if the forest itself were asleep and dreaming, and I was walking through its dream. Everywhere there was motion, subtle, soft. A branch swayed, though no wind moved it. A droplet rose, instead of falling, hung suspended, then melted into light. I could hear faint voices too, not words, but tones, like the murmuring of water beneath stone. It was the kind of sound that felt like breathing in peace. Somewhere in the distance, a stream sang. Its melody was low, circular, endless. I followed it. The mist thickened as I moved deeper, curling around my ankles like fog upon a lake. The ground pulsed faintly beneath my feet, not the beat of earth, but something softer, like the rhythm of a dream. I wondered if this forest truly existed, or if I had simply stepped inside my own soul. A faint glow began to appear ahead, pale, wavering like a lantern seen through tears. I moved toward it, guided not by sight, but by the feeling of being gently called. The glow grew stronger, revealing a small clearing surrounded by trees whose branches curved inward, forming a natural dome. Their silver leaves shivered quietly, creating a sound like the rustle of silk on skin. At the center of the clearing stood a pool. It was small, still perfectly round, a mirror of quiet water, smooth as glass. The surface reflected the rain that never reached it, the mist that hovered above it, and me, standing upon its edge. Yet the reflection was not quite right. The figure in the water moved slower than I did, and her eyes, my eyes, glowed faintly, as if holding light from another world. The air hummed. I knelt by the pool, my fingertips hovering just above the surface. The water shimmered faintly, alive with tiny ripples of light. When I touched it, it was cool, almost too cool, and instantly the world around me deepened. The rain's whisper grew louder, more intimate, like a secret spoken into the hollow of the heart. And then, from within the pool, the reflection spoke. Her lips moved first, soundless, before the words reached me, soft, distant, like echoes carried by wind. "You have come far," she said. "The rain remembers, but so must you." I froze. My reflection was smiling gently, her expression filled with both warmth and sorrow. "Who are you?" I whispered. Her voice rippled through the air, a sound made of light. "I am the dream of who you once were, the child who listened to rain, the soul that believed every drop held a story. You left me behind when you forgot how to dream." I felt a quiet ache bloom within me, as if she had touched a part of me I hadn't realized was wounded. "Why did I stop dreaming?" I asked softly. The reflection's eyes softened. "Because the world grew loud. You learned to listen to storms instead of whispers." Her words hung in the air like mist. Around me, the forest exhaled, the silver leaves rustling as though stirred by something unseen. The reflection extended her hand toward me, her fingertips brushing the inside of the water's surface. The ripples that followed glowed faintly, each forming a small image, fragments of life, moments from long ago, laughter under umbrellas, tears at windows, the hush of candlelight on quiet nights. I saw myself in them, smaller, softer, still whole. The reflection smiled. The rain never forgets. It has kept your gentlest moments safe until now. I watched the ripples fade and asked, why now? Because, she said, you finally learned to listen again. A drop of rain fell into the pool. One single drop. The image rippled, distorting her face, then clearing again. When you walk this forest, she continued, you will meet what the rain remembers for you. Each tree holds a whisper, each shadow a truth. Do not fear what you see. Even the ache is gentle here. She leaned closer, and though she was only reflection, I could feel her breath, cool as rain against my skin. When you are ready, she whispered, the forest will show you where to go next. But remember, you cannot wake what refuses to be at peace. Then, slowly, her image began to fade. The pool grew still. The light dimmed. The reflection dissolved into soft ripples of silver. I sat there for a long while, the mist curling softly around me like breath. I felt something deep within me loosen, a knot of memory, perhaps, or grief. The sound of the rain became softer now, less like a voice, more like a heartbeat. When I finally rose, I noticed something new, a faint trail of light winding through the trees, almost invisible but pulsing gently, leading deeper into the forest. I knew, somehow, that this was the path the rain wished me to follow. I turned once more toward the pool, whispering, thank you, though no one remained to hear it. The forest shimmered in reply, its leaves trembling as though sighing in contentment. Then I stepped forward, following the glowing path, each step slow, deliberate, and calm. The mist parted softly before me, revealing more silver trunks, more soft echoes of rain. As I walked, I began to hear something new, faint music, not made by instruments, but by the sound of droplets striking crystal leaves, of streams kissing stone, of branches bending under moonlight. It was the sound of stillness turned into song, and through it all, the rain whispered again, quieter now, more intimate, closer to my ear. Walk gently, dreamer. The forest remembers you, too. I closed my eyes as I walked, letting the sound guide me until the world faded into rhythm and breath, the lullaby of rain on leaves, the soft hum of the forest dreaming in silver. We continue now, deeper into the dream, where rainlight becomes starlight and a forgotten cottage waits beneath the quiet sky. Chapter 4. The cottage beneath the falling stars. The path glowed faintly beneath my feet, weaving through the forest like a silver ribbon laid by unseen hands. The rain had softened into a fine shimmer, not quite mist, not quite light, a weightless veil that made everything appear half-dreamed, half-remembered. The forest was still, yet alive, breathing with me in slow unison. Each step was a lullaby, Each breath, a prayer. Each heartbeat, a quiet ripple in an endless pool of calm. The trees grew thinner as I walked. The silver glow between them brightened, widening until the forest opened like a sigh into a meadow. And there, beneath the arch of clouds and starlit rain, stood a cottage. It was small, perhaps only 1 or 2 rooms, built of pale stone that gleamed like the inside of a seashell. Vines climbed its walls, their leaves glimmering faintly as though brushed with moonlight. Smoke rose lazily from a crooked chimney, curling upward into the mist, and a faint golden glow leaked from the windows, warm against the cool silver night. For a long moment, I simply stood there, watching. There was something achingly familiar about it. The tilt of the roof, the little wooden door slightly ajar, the faint creak of the sign above it, though I couldn't read the words. It felt like the echo of a place I'd once known, long ago, in another dream. The rain, too, seemed to remember it, each drop falling softer here, slower, as though unwilling to disturb the peace that rested on the cottage like a blessing. I approached quietly, my footsteps muffled by damp grass. The closer I came, the warmer the air grew, not just in temperature, but in feeling. A soft hum radiated from within, a tune I could almost recognize, something low and steady, like a lullaby sung by someone who has waited a very long time. When I reached the door, I paused. My reflection shimmered faintly in the window pane, a blurred figure in the rainlight, eyes wide with wonder. I hesitated, hand hovering over the wooden handle, until I heard it, a voice from inside. "Come in," it said, gentle as the sound of rain on glass. "I've been expecting you." I didn't question how. The dream had its own laws. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The warmth embraced me immediately, a deep honeyed warmth that reached through my clothes, through my skin, into the quiet chambers of my heart. The room was softly lit by lanterns hung from beams of old wood. A fire crackled in the hearth, not fiercely, but contentedly, its glow painting slow gold circles on the floor. Shelves lined the walls, filled with jars and scrolls, dried herbs and curious trinkets that gleamed like drops of captured light. There were books, to hundreds, maybe more, their spines faded, their pages resting as if in deep sleep. The air smelled of cedar, old parchment, and rain, and by the fire sat an old man. His beard was long and silver, like the forest leaves, and his eyes were the color of the evening sky, deep blue touched with starlight. He smiled when he saw me, a smile both kind and knowing, the kind that made time feel irrelevant. "I thought you might have forgotten the way," he said softly, stirring the fire with a long wooden poker. "I don't think I ever knew it," I replied. He chuckled, the sound like the gentle creak of an old chair. "No one does, until the rain remembers them." I took a seat across from him, on a worn armchair covered in soft, faded fabric. It smelled faintly of lavender and smoke. For a while, neither of us spoke. The fire made its quiet music, and outside, the rain continued its whispered song. Finally, I asked, "What is this place?" The man smiled without looking up. "A resting place, between dreams and dawn. You might call it the cottage of remembering." He poked at the fire again, and sparks rose, tiny stars swirling upward before dissolving into the air. "Everyone who listens to the rain comes here, eventually, when they've wandered long enough through the forest of silver dreams." His words felt both new and ancient, familiar and strange. I leaned forward slightly. "And what happens here?" He glanced at me, eyes gleaming softly. You remember who you are when the world isn't watching. The fire popped gently. The sound blended with the slow ticking of a clock somewhere in the shadows. I noticed a teapot on the hearthstone, steam drifting from its spout. The man reached for 2 cups, poured the tea, and handed one to me. The porcelain was warm in my hands, and the scent was soothing, like rain on summer soil. Drink, he said. It helps you listen. I took a sip. It was light and floral, with a faint sweetness I couldn't name. The warmth spread through me like a gentle tide, reaching every corner of my being, dissolving the last remnants of wakefulness. For a long while, we sat in silence, listening to the rain against the roof. Each drop felt like a heartbeat, slow, deep, full of meaning. Then softly, he began to speak again. Long ago, before the noise of the world grew loud, the rain was how people remembered each other. Every drop carried a whisper of love, of loss, of longing. When the sky wept, it wasn't sadness, it was memory falling home. He looked at me with a faint smile, but people stopped listening. They forgot how to hear what the rain was saying, until dreams like this one find them again. His gaze drifted to the window, and now the rain is whispering about you. It has stories to tell if you're gentle enough to hear them. Outside, a gust of soft wind swept through, and for a moment, the fire dimmed. Through the window, I saw the rain glisten brighter, each drop turning briefly to starlight before touching the earth. It was as if the sky itself was crying light. The old man watched, his voice quieter now, almost like a prayer. When the stars fall with the rain, the past becomes clear. Sometimes you'll see faces, sometimes places, sometimes only light. But whatever you see, let it wash through you. Do not hold it. Do not chase it. Just listen. His words lingered in the air long after he stopped speaking. I turned to the window again, and my breath caught. The rain outside had indeed changed. Each droplet now carried a spark, a small glimmer that fell like a soft star. The world shimmered, blurred, became something between night and dream, and in the reflection of the glass, I saw faint shapes, silhouettes of people I once knew, or perhaps had only dreamed of. Their eyes glowed gently, and though they didn't speak, I understood they were part of the story the rain was telling. When I looked back, the old man was still smiling, though his form had grown fainter, dissolving softly into the air. His voice came one last time, like a whisper carried through fog. Rest here tonight. The rain will keep you safe, and when dawn finds you, follow where the stars fall. Then he was gone. Only the fire remained, and the slow heartbeat of rain. I leaned back into the armchair, my body softening, my eyes heavy. The warmth of the tea and the sound of the storm wrapped around me like a blanket. The world faded to silver, then to gold, then to nothing at all outside. The rain continued to whisper its stories about us, and beneath the falling stars, I drifted into sleep within the dream. Beautiful. Now we drift onward, beyond the cottage, into the flowing silver heart of the dream. Chapter 5. The river that carried forgotten names when I awoke. The fire had gone quiet. Only the faintest ember glowed within the hearth, a pulse of warm red breathing softly in the darkness. The cottage felt different, lighter, quieter, as though it too had fallen asleep. Outside, dawn had not yet arrived. The world beyond the window was silver blue, drenched in mist. The rain had gentled to a hush, a soft brushing sound, like fingertips against silk. I rose, wrapping a thin shawl from the chair around my shoulders. The fabric smelled faintly of cedar and rain. As I stepped outside, the air touched my face like a cool sigh. Everything shimmered, the grass, the stones, even the air itself seemed to hum faintly, as if the night had become liquid. I took a deep breath. The scent of the rain was rich and clean, carrying the sweetness of wet leaves and distant earth. The stars above were dimming now, dissolving into the mist, their last lights winking faintly like lanterns drifting away. I remembered the old man's words, "When dawn finds you, follow where the stars fall." And so I did. The meadow stretched ahead, silver and soft, the grass bending gently under my steps. In the distance, where the mist thinned into a faint glow, I saw a glimmering trail of water, a river winding through the hills, its surface alive with ripples of light. I began to walk toward it. The journey was quiet. My only companions were the steady rhythm of my breathing and the delicate music of rain. The path sloped downward, and soon I reached the riverbank, a broad, smooth curve of stone and moss. The water was unlike any I had ever seen, clear, yet luminous, each wave reflecting not the sky, but faint images moving within it, faces, names, fleeting words. It was a river of memories. I knelt beside it, mesmerized. The current moved slowly, and in it I saw countless letters drifting by, etched in light, written in a language I somehow understood without reading. They were names, soft, glowing, ephemeral, whispered by the rain and carried here to rest. Somewhere deep within, I felt one of them call to me. Not loudly, not insistently, just a small, tender ache, like hearing someone hum your favorite song from another room. I reached my hand toward the water. The surface quivered beneath my touch, ripples spreading outward, distorting the light. For an instant, the name became clear, written in a looping script of silver and gold. My name, and yet it was not quite mine. It was an older version, the one I had once been known by in dreams, or perhaps before birth. Seeing it there felt like remembering a lullaby I hadn't sung in ages. I whispered it aloud, and the river shivered in reply. At that sound, the rain around me paused, just for a heartbeat, and then resumed, gentler than before. The water began to glow brighter, and from its surface, a faint figure began to rise. It was made of mist and light, almost transparent, yet shaped like a person. When it spoke, its voice was the sound of the river itself, soft, eternal. "You've remembered your name," it said. "The rain has waited long for that." I didn't know what to say. My throat felt tight, full of unspoken memories. The figure tilted its head slightly, like a reflection waiting for recognition. "This river," it continued, "carries the names of all who have forgotten who they are. When they listen long enough, when the rain finally touches their hearts again, their names drift back into their hands." I watched the flowing current. Each ripple seemed alive, whispering stories, weaving through fragments of light. "Why do we forget?" I asked. The figure smiled, faint and wistful. "Because the world teaches noise, not stillness." It tells you to listen outward, not inward. But the rain teaches you to remember softly. Its words moved through me like warmth. I could feel something shifting inside, a loosening of old weight. And when we remember, I asked, the river brightened. Then you become part of the song again. The figure stepped closer, though it made no ripples, no sound. Its eyes were the color of rain upon glass, and when it looked at me, I felt both known and forgiven. Listen, it said softly. The rain grew quieter, the world held its breath, and from within the river came a sound, faint at first, then clearer, a chorus of whispers, names upon names, stories upon stories, all merging into one continuous hum. The melody rose and fell like breathing endless, patient, full of light. Each voice felt familiar, as if I had met them all in dreams. I realized, with a sudden, tender ache, that I had. These were the echoes of everyone I had ever loved, and everyone who had loved me in this life or another. Their names rippled past like fireflies on water, fading and reforming in patterns too beautiful to describe. The figure beside me spoke again. The rain remembers not just the living, but the loved. Those we think we've lost are only carried downstream to the place where all stories meet. Its hand, cool and gentle, touched my shoulder. When you feel alone, listen. Somewhere, the rain is whispering your name. A tear slipped down my cheek, though it felt less like sorrow and more like release. It joined the river, merging into the flow of silver. The figure watched, its smile deepening, not with joy, but with peace, and then, as quietly as it had come, it began to fade. The rain softened once more, turning to mist. The river's glow dimmed, though its sound remained eternal, soothing. Constant dot before it vanished completely. The figure's voice lingered in the air like a promise. Follow the current, dreamer. It will take you to where the rain begins. The words wrapped around me, and I stood, breathing deeply, feeling the rhythm of the water flow through my pulse at the river's bend. I saw it, a soft trail of light winding downstream, disappearing into the mist. Without hesitation, I began to walk along the bank, keeping the song of names close to my heart. The rain whispered softly around me again, carrying fragments of laughter, echoes of warmth. Every drop that touched my skin felt like a memory returning home, and somewhere in the distance, faint and far, yet certain, I heard it, the beginning of another voice, calling me onward, toward the heart of the rain. Beautiful. Let's drift deeper into the rainlit world where dreams and memory blur like ink on parchment. Chapter 6. The lanterns beneath the rain, the mist thickened as I followed the river downstream. It curled softly around my feet and whispered across the moss, carrying the scent of pine and wet earth. Each step felt like moving through a breath, quiet, weightless, slow. The river beside me was no longer silver, but deep blue, streaked with faint golden glimmers, like threads of sunlight trapped beneath the water. Every now and then, the glow would brighten, a pulse of warmth in the cold dawn, and then fade again. Like the heart of a sleeping world, the rain never stopped. But it had changed now. It fell with a rhythm, a gentle, steady cadence, as though it had learned to sing. The droplets tapped softly against leaves, stones, and skin, blending into one endless, soothing lullaby. I breathed with it. In with the rain's fall, out with the river's sigh. The path wound between tall cypress trees. Their trunks were dark and smooth, glistening with rainlight. Between their roots, tiny pools had gathered, round mirrors reflecting the dim sky. When I passed them, I could see fragments of my own face rippling there, blurred and dreamlike. I wondered if this was still a dream, or if dreams were simply another way the world decided to speak. Ahead, the mist began to glow faintly, soft golds and muted ambers, flickering as though the air itself were alive. As I drew nearer, the light revealed its source. Lanterns, dozens of them, floating just above the river's surface, tethered by thin silver threads. Each one swayed gently, as though rocked by invisible hands. Their paper shells glowed from within, not with fire, but with something gentler, something like captured moonlight. I stopped at the water's edge. The sight was so tender, so quietly magnificent, that my heart stilled to match its rhythm. The rain shimmered against the lanterns, and each droplet that touched them turned momentarily into a spark before fading away as I watched. One of the lanterns drifted toward me. Its light pulsed softly, once, twice, before resting against the bank near my feet. Curiosity guided my hand. I reached out, touching the lantern's smooth, damp paper. Warmth bloomed through my fingers, not heat, but a living, breathing warmth, like the feeling of holding a hand that belongs to someone you once missed deeply. The lantern opened slightly, and inside I saw something glowing faintly, a memory. It wasn't a clear image, more like a feeling wrapped in light. The laughter of someone standing in rain beside me, the scent of bread baking in a distant kitchen, the sound of my name spoken softly just before sleep. It was a piece of me I hadn't known was missing. The lantern flickered, as if sensing my recognition, and then drifted back into the water, joining the gentle current. Others began to glow brighter, as though awakening one by one. Soon, the river was alive with them, floating lights, weaving slowly together, their reflections trembling on the water's surface. It was like walking through the sky itself, stars brought low enough to touch. And then, from across the river, a voice spoke. Each lantern carries a story, it said, calm and deep. Some yours, some of others. The rain gathers them so they will never be lost. I looked up. On the far bank stood a woman cloaked in blue. The fabric shimmered faintly with rain, glistening like liquid silk. Her hair, long and dark, flowed behind her as though stirred by unseen wind. She held a small lantern of her own, though unlike the others, hers burned with a steady flame, golden and unwavering. I wanted to call to her, to ask who she was, but the rain softened my voice before it reached her. Still, she smiled a quiet, knowing smile and raised her hand slightly, beckoning me closer. Without hesitation, I stepped into the shallow river. The water was cool, almost cold, but it welcomed me. Each step sent ripples outward, disturbing the reflections of lanterns, which shimmered and reformed around my legs like small ghosts of light. When I reached the middle of the river, she spoke again. Do you know why the rain remembers? I shook my head. Because it listens, she said softly. It hears what hearts cannot say aloud, and keeps those words safe in light. She lifted her lantern. Every drop, every shimmer, they are whispers from those who once loved, or dreamed, or hoped. They never vanish. They simply change form. Her words felt like truth spoken in a dream. I could feel them sinking into me, filling the quiet spaces inside with warmth. "Take one," she said. "Carry it until dawn. It will remind you who you are when the rain grows silent." I hesitated, unsure which lantern was meant for me. But then, one of them drifted forward, brushing against my hand like a small creature asking to be held. I lifted it gently, and it glowed brighter in my palm, casting golden light across my face. Within the lantern's glow, I saw another vision, myself, sitting beneath a willow tree, sketching something in the dirt with a stick. A child's laughter, my own, perhaps, echoed faintly. The air smelled of summer rain. It was an old memory, one I had forgotten entirely. Tears pricked my eyes, though I wasn't sad. It felt like a reunion with my own softness, my own wonder. The woman's voice came again, though now it seemed to come from everywhere. The rain, the river, the air. "When you feel lost, light what the rain has given you. It will lead you home, even through the quietest storm." As her final word faded, she too began to fade, her outline melting into mist until only her lantern remained, drifting away downstream, joining the others. I stood there for a long while, the lantern's warmth soaking into my hands. The rain fell steadily, whispering stories on my skin. The river murmured beneath me, carrying names, light, and memories onward to some unseen place. Finally, when I began to feel the pull of sleep again, I stepped out of the water. I found a smooth rock near the bank and sat down, the lantern resting beside me. Its glow flickered gently against my face. I closed my eyes. The sound of the rain became a slow heartbeat, and before sleep took me, I thought I heard the woman's voice once more, soft and distant, like wind through reeds. We are all lanterns, drifting in the rain, each carrying a story that never truly ends. And with that, I drifted into the next stream, where the rain sang quietly of light. Beautiful. Now, we drift onward past the river of lanterns and into the heart of a dream that hums softly with flowers and forgotten lullabies. Chapter 7. The Garden of Sleeping Bells. When I awoke again, the rain had grown softer, no longer falling, but floating. Each droplet seemed suspended in the air, hanging like tiny pearls of light. The air shimmered faintly, and the river that had carried me this far now wound lazily through a valley of mist. My lantern still glowed beside me, though its flame had dimmed to a tender, steady pulse. The path ahead was lined with arching branches, heavy with dew. Beneath them, faint glimmers of silver traced their way through the grass. As I stepped forward, I realized they were not stones or streams, but petals, thousands of translucent blossoms carpeting the earth like snow that dreamed itself into flowers. The scent was soft and strange, part rain, part memory, part something I could not name. It reminded me of nights spent waiting for sleep as a child, when shadows felt kind and silence felt alive. A small wind stirred, and the blossoms swayed, making a delicate, chime and airy sound, like porcelain touching glass. That was when I saw them, bells. Hundreds of them. Tiny white bells, growing from vines that curved upward toward unseen stars. Each one shimmered faintly, holding a drop of rain inside it, as though the sky had left its tears to sleep within the petals. I walked carefully among them, afraid that even breathing too deeply might disturb their stillness. Every step set off a faint hum beneath my feet. The ground itself seemed to echo the rhythm of my pulse. And then, a whisper, "Do not wake them too quickly." The voice was light and playful, as though carried by the wind. I turned but saw no one. Only the bells swaying in unison, their faint sound rippling outward like a sigh. I took another step, slower this time. The air shimmered again, and from among the blossoms, a figure began to emerge. She was small, barely taller than my shoulder and, draped in a gown the color of dawn. Her hair was white as frost, and her eyes shone with the same soft blue that lives inside raindrops. In her hands, she held a single bell on a thin silver thread. "They are sleeping," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The rain sang them into dreams. Her words carried a rhythm, gentle and hypnotic, and as she spoke, some of the nearby bells flickered faintly, glowing and dimming like breathing light. "Why are they sleeping?" I asked. "Because the world forgot to listen," she said simply. So the bells closed their eyes to remember what quiet felt like. Her gaze drifted toward the valley beyond. Every bell holds a story that once echoed in the hearts of the living. They only awaken when someone listens with kindness again. I knelt beside her, careful not to disturb the blossoms. "Can they be awakened?" A faint smile touched her lips, only softly, only by sound that carries no burden. She lifted the silver thread and placed the bell in my hand. "Try." The bell felt impossibly light, yet warm to the touch. I tilted it gently, and it made the faintest sound, a single, trembling note that hung in the air like a breath. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the garden shivered. A wave of faint light passed over the blossoms, and dozens of bells began to glow, their inner droplets of rain trembling like tiny moons. The chimes spread outward, building in layers, until the air was filled with a soft, rolling symphony of sound. It was like being inside the memory of rain, endless, tender, and impossibly beautiful. The small woman closed her eyes and smiled. "They remember you," she said. "You've walked here before, though not as you are now." Her words sent a warmth through me that I couldn't quite explain. "I have," she nodded. "In another dream, when the world was still new and the rain had not yet learned to whisper, you were the one who taught it to listen." I wanted to ask more, but the sound of the bells was rising again, layering upon itself until it became almost like a song. It was not loud, never loud but vast, reaching into every corner of me, weaving through my thoughts like threads of silver. The bell's music was filled with images. A child watching raindrops race down a window pane, hands weaving garlands of wet flowers. A promise made under a dark sky and kept through silence. Each note carried something both familiar and forgotten. The woman's eyes met mine. When people forget to rest, the bells sleep. When they listen, they wake. That is how the rain remembers what peace sounds like. She motioned toward the distance, where the mist was beginning to lift. "Follow their song. It will lead you to the hill of echoes. That's where the rain keeps its oldest stories." As she spoke, her outline began to blur, fading into mist just as the woman of the lanterns had done. Her voice lingered a moment longer. When you reach the hill, listen not with your ears, but with your breathing. Then she was gone. The bells continued to sing softly, their tones weaving through the falling rain. I stood there for a long time, breathing slowly, feeling their song vibrate in my chest like a heartbeat. And as I began to walk once more, the blossoms bent slightly, brushing against my ankles as though blessing my passage. Their chime followed, gentle, steady, fading only as the mist thickened again. The lantern I carried glowed brighter with each step, reflecting the music of the bells in its trembling light. I realized, as I walked, that the deeper I went into this dream, the lighter I became, as though each sound, each whisper of rain, was slowly washing away everything that had ever weighed me down. When I looked up again, the valley opened wide before me, beyond the last of the sleeping bells. I could see it, a faint rise in the distance, crowned by faint light. Where the rain fell in perfect stillness, the hill of echoes. I knew, somehow, that I was meant to climb it, but not yet. The bell's song still lingered behind me, soft, eternal, like the memory of peace itself. And so, I paused beneath the dripping branches and closed my eyes once more, listening until every chime became the sound of my own breath. The rain is our companion, and every breath is part of its song. Chapter 8: The Hill of Echoes. The path to the hill began where the garden ended, where the music of the sleeping bells faded into a silence that felt sacred. The air changed there. It grew lighter, cooler, scented with wild herbs and moss. The mist lifted enough for me to see the faint outline of the hill ahead. A gentle rise blanketed in tall, silver grass that swayed with the rhythm of the wind. Every blade seemed to shimmer with its own quiet light, and though the world was drenched in rain, this hill glowed as though kissed by an invisible moon. I started walking. Each step sank slightly into the wet earth, soft and yielding, and the ground hummed faintly beneath my soles. I could no longer tell where the sound was coming from, the earth, the air, or the memory of the bells behind me. The lantern I carried pulsed dimly now, matching the pace of my heartbeat. Its light was no longer golden, but bluish, like a drop of moonlight captured in glass. Halfway up the hill, I stopped to breathe. The rain here fell differently. It did not patter or pour. It floated downward in slow spirals, as if gravity itself had grown drowsy. When it touched my skin, it felt warm, not with heat, but with recognition. And then I began to hear it, a sound beneath the silence. Not a voice exactly, but something like a memory of one, a low hum, deep and endless, as though the world itself were exhaling. I closed my eyes and listened. The hum grew clearer, breaking gently into fragments, tones that overlapped and faded, repeating again and again, forming a slow, looping rhythm. Each sound echoed faintly off the hill, but the echo was never identical. It always returned softer, warmer, changed slightly, as though carrying back a piece of understanding. I realized, then, why it was called the Hill of Echoes. It did not merely repeat sound, it remembered it. I whispered my name, the name I had seen written in the river, and waited. The hill listened. The echo returned not as a word, but as a sigh, tender and low, carrying with it a feeling I could only describe as belonging. The rain seemed to lean in closer. Each droplet fell slower now, gliding through the air like falling stars. When I looked up, I saw them, faint shapes forming in the mist near the top of the hill. They looked like silhouettes carved from moonlight. Men, women, children, each one still and listening. Their faces were peaceful, eyes closed, as if they too were waiting for something. I felt no fear, only calm curiosity. I climbed higher. As I reached the crest, the world opened up around me. The valley stretched far below, rivers of light weaving through forests of shadow. The rain hung like a curtain of silver threads, and at the very top of the hill stood a single ancient stone. It was smooth and pale, etched with faint spiral markings that glowed softly when touched by rain. At its base, hundreds of tiny puddles reflected the sky, and within them I could see faces not of the living or the dead, but of moments, laughter, tears, silent gazes exchanged beneath storms long forgotten. The sound deepened. The hum that had filled the air now became layered with whispers, thousands of them, rising and falling like the tide. I knelt beside the stone and pressed my palm against its surface. It was cool but alive, vibrating faintly with every whisper that passed through it. And then I heard it. A voice I recognized. It was mine, not the one I carried now, but another, younger, softer. It was humming an old tune, one I had once sung to myself when rain kept me awake as a child. The realization struck like warmth. Every sound we make, no matter how small, never truly fades. The rain remembers. The world remembers. The echoes are its way of giving them back. The lantern beside me flickered once, then steadied. The hum of the hill grew softer, slower, until it matched the rhythm of my breathing in that stillness. Another voice joined mine, older, calm, familiar. The voice of the woman from the river. You've come far, dreamer. Now listen not for answers, but for peace. The air shimmered as if the rain itself was speaking through her. Every drop, every echo, every breath you've taken, it's all the same sound, folded over time. The rain does not speak about us. It speaks as us. Her words sank into me like water into soil. I understood then that the hill was not a place of learning, but of remembering, of returning sound to silence, and silence to sound. The echoes began to change, growing fainter, more distant. I realized they were not fading, but resting, like voices finally finding sleep. I closed my eyes and whispered softly into the mist, "Thank you." The rain stilled for one infinite heartbeat. The world held its breath and then released it, long and deep, a sigh that seemed to travel through the stones, through the river, through the garden of bells, through the very heart of the dream itself. When I opened my eyes, the silhouettes had vanished. Only the rain remained slow, luminous, falling through air that glowed faintly blue. I stood, feeling lighter than I had in lifetimes. The lantern's light began to drift upward, leaving my hands, floating higher and higher until it joined the falling rain, and as it vanished into the mist, I understood the echoes were never voices returning to me. They were me returning to the voices. I looked once more upon the valley below, every river, every petal, every lantern, now a memory folded into the song of rain. and I smiled. Then, quietly, peacefully, I began the descent. The rain followed, whispering softly, telling stories not of endings, but of rest. Now we ascend beyond the waking world, into that quiet realm where moonlight holds memory like water in its palms. This is where dreams breathe. Chapter 9. When the moon opened her hands, the descent from the hill of echoes was gentle, as though the land itself understood that haste had no place here. Each step down felt like a slow exhale, a soft unwinding of everything I had carried. The rain no longer fell in drops now. It drifted like mist, curling and folding around me, luminous and weightless. The world had gone almost entirely silent. No wind, no rustle of leaves, only the steady hush of the rain's breath like silk sliding over stone. I walked without thought, following the faint shimmer of light that seemed to move just ahead of me. Perhaps the last reflection of my lantern, or perhaps something older. The air grew cooler, tinged with a pale silver glow. I realized then that the mist was thinning, and above it, the sky was opening again. The moon had risen. Not the small, distant moon I knew. This one was vast, impossibly close, its light spilling over the world like liquid pearl. It felt alive, pulsing faintly as though it too had a heartbeat. And as I watched, I saw her face, not with eyes, but with the quiet certainty one feels in dreams. The moon was awake, and she was watching me. The rain shimmered beneath her gaze, each droplet catching her light and turning transparent, almost invisible. My skin glowed faintly, bathed in silver, and then, for the first time, I felt her speak, not in words, but in waves of warmth, the kind that bloom behind your ribs when you're seen. Truly seen, her voice arrived as thought. Woven with calm, you have listened long, little one. You have followed where the rain remembers. Now you must learn why it whispers. The ground beneath me rippled, soft as breath, and I found myself standing in a field of white water lilies. Their petals were drenched in moonlight, glowing faintly from within. Each one held a single droplet of rain in its center, trembling, glistening, never falling. A path of lilies led toward a mirror-like pool ahead. The surface was perfectly still, reflecting the vast silver moon so clearly that it was impossible to tell where the sky ended and the water began. I stepped closer, feeling the air shift around me slow, thick, and sacred. When I reached the edge, I knelt and peered into the water. At first I saw only my reflection, pale and quiet beneath the silver sky. Then, slowly, the image changed. I saw the river of names, the lanterns of light, the sleeping bells, the hill where echoes breathed. All of them were there, shimmering softly like chapters of the same dream, converging upon this single point. And then, I saw her. The moon's reflection moved closer, her form no longer vast but human-shaped, a woman with hair like drifting fog and eyes like polished stone. Her hands were cupped together, and within them lay a pool of glowing rain. She smiled faintly. "All things that have been loved," she said, "find their way back here." The pool in her hands pulsed softly, mirroring the rhythm of my heart. I could feel warmth radiating from it, wrapping me in the same tenderness that filled the rain when it first began to fall that night. The rain whispers stories about you, she continued, her voice flowing like a lullaby, because you are part of its song. Every kindness you've ever given, every sorrow you've ever softened, they fall back to earth as rain. I felt tears rise, though I could not tell if they were mine or hers. They met the reflection, merging with the pool in her hands. You've wandered far to remember something simple, the moon said. That the world was never meant to rush. That even grief, when held gently, becomes rain soft enough to nourish the quiet things. She extended her hands toward me. The pool of light began to spill over the edges, falling upward, droplets rising, not descending. And as they touched my face, I felt an overwhelming calm. Each drop that landed became a memory, a friend's laughter, the scent of rain-soaked wood, the comfort of being held, the silence that follows forgiveness. The moon's voice grew softer still, barely more than breath. When the rain whispers stories about you, it is not to remind you of what was lost, but of what continues. The lilies around the pool began to sway gently, though no wind stirred. Their lights brightened, and for a moment, I could hear their faint song, thousands of small, crystalline voices, all humming the same tender melody. I reached out to touch the reflection of the moon's hand. The surface rippled once, and then the world shifted. The pool expanded, spreading beneath my feet until it was all that existed. Sky and water became one. The moon's reflection rose, enveloping everything in silver. And then darkness. Not the darkness of fear or ending, but the velvety quiet that comes before sleep. Through it, her voice lingered, soft, endless, certain. When you wake, the rain will still be telling your story. And one day, when another walks through it, they will hear your kindness in its rhythm. The sound of her voice faded into the rain's hush, until there was nothing but stillness and the slow, rhythmic beat of my heart, a quiet echo beneath the moon's light. And for the first time, I understood the rain had not been whispering about me at all. It had been whispering with me all along. The dream has grown soft now, like the final candle before dawn. Only one chapter remains, where silence becomes comfort, and the heart remembers what stillness truly feels like. Chapter 10. The morning the rain fell silent when I opened my eyes. The first thing I noticed was the quiet. A quiet so deep and tender that it didn't feel empty. It felt whole. The kind of stillness that lingers just after a lullaby ends, when the notes still tremble in the air. I was lying in the field where the rain had once fallen, though now it glistened under a pale, new light. The sky was silver blue, stretched wide and clear. The clouds had drifted away in slow ribbons, leaving behind the scent of clean air and soaked earth. The rain had stopped. But even in its absence, I could still feel it, a faint rhythm, like a memory folded between my breaths. I sat up, slowly, letting my fingers trail through the wet grass. Tiny droplets clung to my skin, catching the early sun. Each one reflected the world, the trees, the sky. My face all mirrored in miniature universes. The lantern I had carried lay beside me. Its flame was gone, but the glass was warm to the touch, as though it still remembered light. Somewhere nearby, a brook hummed softly, threading its silver way through stones and roots. I listened. The world was whispering again, not in rain this time, but in the hush between sounds. And in that hush, I could hear them. The voices of the rain, the echoes of dreams, the quiet music of every step I had taken. They were not fading. They had simply become part of me. I rose and began walking. The air was cool, the kind that carries the promise of morning rather than the weight of night. Birds had begun to stir in the branches, soft chirps, hesitant at first, like the world testing its voice again. The forest, once dark and veiled in mist, now shimmered with dew. Light touched everything gently, the moss, the bark, the small pools that reflected pieces of the sky. It felt as though the whole earth had taken a deep, cleansing breath. As I walked, I thought about the moon and her open hands. The way she had spoken, not to teach or command, but simply to remind. Every kindness returns, she had said. Every gentle thing becomes rain again. Her words rippled through me now, like echoes through water. And I understood what she meant, that the rain's whispers had never been about past or future. They were about presence, about learning to listen to life as it unfolds, softly, moment by moment. A narrow path led out of the forest and into a meadow where wildflowers leaned toward the dawn. Their petals still held the night's memory, droplets shining like crystal beads. The air smelled faintly of lavender and damp soil. I stopped in the middle of that meadow and looked around. No sound of footsteps, no voice but my own breath. And yet, I didn't feel alone, because I could feel the rain in everything, in the heartbeat of the earth beneath me, in the sunlight that trembled on the edge of a petal, in the slow rhythm of my lungs, breathing in and out. For a long while, I simply stood there, breathing. Inhale the scent of morning, exhale the last of the dream. The edges between dream and waking were dissolving, like watercolor fading into paper. I couldn't tell where the story ended, or where I began. And maybe that was the point, far in the distance. I saw a small cottage I hadn't noticed before, its roof glistening with leftover rain. Smoke curled gently from its chimney, carrying the scent of something warm, something alive. I walked toward it slowly, my footsteps making no sound. The closer I came, the more I could hear a kettle's faint whistle, the creak of wood, the sigh of a door shifting in its frame. At the threshold, I paused. The door was open, just enough to let the light spill out, golden and kind. I stepped inside. The cottage was quiet, simple. Wooden beams, a small table by the window, a bed draped in linen, a candle flickering low. And beside the candle, a book. Its cover was damp, as though it had been left outside in the rain. I picked it up carefully. The pages shimmered faintly, like they'd been kissed by moonlight. On the first page, in small, careful handwriting, were the words, "Where the rain whispers stories about us." My breath caught. I turned another page, blank. Another, blank, until I reached the last, where a single sentence waited, written as if for me alone. "Sleep, and you will hear us again." The candle flickered, and the air shifted, warmer now, wrapping around me like a blanket. The sound of the brook outside blended with the quiet rhythm of my heartbeat. I sat by the window, watching the world through the slow curl of steam from my breath. The rain might have stopped, but its voice still lingered in every drop, every shimmer, every soft exhale of the earth, and as I closed my eyes, I felt it once more, the presence of the rain, whispering gently against the edges of my thoughts, not asking to be remembered, but reminding me that I already was. The world breathed with me, and everything, at last, was still, where the rain whispers stories about us. A sleep story in 10 soft chapters here. The dream ends, not with silence, but with peace. The rain has become memory. The memory has become warmth. And you have become part of the rain's endless song.